Hi, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, just as a summary, I'm going through the GCSE Maths Higher 9-1 syllabus. You can also use my videos if you are doing the Foundation GCSE course as well. I will try to define which of the videos are specifically for the higher syllabus. So in this video, we're going to start a new part. So this is going to be part 2, expressions. And this is video 2.1, expressions introduction. Okay, so we're going to start off with some definitions. So first of all, we're going to look at is expressions. Expressions is a collection of letters and numbers, and it does not have an equal sign. For example, 4x plus 1 is an expression. Now, equation. Equation is a collection of letters and numbers, but this one does have an equal sign. Usually this is something that can be solved or is ready to be solved. So for example of this is 4x plus 1 equals 5. So this is an example of an equation. So expression, no equal sign, equation has an equal sign. So the other one is formula. So this is a relationship between two or more letters and it contains an equal sign. So as an example of this is this. So later in your science course, you may science like physics mainly. You might come across this equation. Well, I did when I was doing my GCSE physics. So this is example of P equals IV, which is power equals current times voltage. So this is an example of a formula. So generally speaking, equation and formula are pretty much both the same thing, both mean the same thing. But the only difference is when the equation is actually something to do with the question that you're doing. Formula is something that's more of set in stone and it's already there for you to use. Well, equation is something that changes and it's from the depending on a question to question. Well, formula is something that's either given to you or it's like a proven fact of something. For example, in here, it is a proven fact that power does in fact equals to current multiplied by voltage. So that's a formula, an equation. Equation is done. So in technically speaking, you can use equation and formula for both for the same thing, but they are both slightly different. For example, if you take blue, the color blue, and then you say blue is different to dark blue, but both are types of blues, if you understand that context. So moving on, in these definitions, what you can see is, so for all of those three categories that we saw in the previous slide, so these three categories, so expressions, equations, and formula, there's also a few more small definitions inside it. So we're going to use an expression. So we're just going to use 5x minus 2. So these definitions are same for all three other categories. Okay? So I'm just going to take this expression as an example, 5x minus 2. So this is a definition. So term. So term is a component part in an expression and it's linked by a plus or a minus. For example, in this example that I'm using here, so 5x minus 2, the terms are 5x and minus 2. So in total, there are two terms in this expression because 5x and minus 2 is linked by the minus 2. Okay, so don't get confused. If when someone says terms, don't say, oh, the terms of this expression is 5x and 2. No, that would be wrong because you have 5x and you have a minus 2. You don't have a plus 2. If you say and just 2, that would mean plus 2. So that would be a different thing. The next one is variable. The variable is an unknown quantity represented by a letter. So in this example, the variable is x. The variable is just pretty much a letter. And if you're technically speaking, the formula, the example that I have used for the formula, these are all variables because they're all letters. We know what these letters represent, but we don't know the values of these letters. So the variable and coefficient. The coefficient is the number in front of the letter. So in other words, it's the multiple of a variable. So yeah, the coefficient is 5 because there's 5 times x minus 2. So the coefficient is 5. Okay, now let's move on to expressions. So as we discussed earlier, expression is just a collection of letters and numbers without the equal sign. So we know this, but what will you be asked to do with it? Like, what's it for? What do you use it for? What do you do with it? Well, you can be asked a few things actually. So you can be asked to work out the value. So they can be specific values for the letters, and then they can say, oh, work this out. Or they can say, simplify multiple expressions. So you can simplify these multiple expressions using the basic operations like the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So you can simplify these multiple expressions, and you can also simplify them by collecting like terms, and we'll look at that later at that. Or you could also be asked to these are the basic operations. Or you can also be asked to make an expression from a scenario. For example, you could be asked, okay, so you have X number of sweets. Your friend gave you Y number of sweets. You're left with 5 total sweets. How many sweets did you start with? How many sweets did your friend give you? So something like that. So okay, so when dealing with these expressions, we need to know a few rules. So let's look at those rules. The rules for writing expressions. First off, do not include the multiplication sign. So what I mean by this is here. So writing 3 multiplied by a is wrong. You just write 3a. So that's the writing 3a is the correct way to do it. And writing divisions as fractions. So if you write 3 divided by a, that's wrong. And you need to write 3 over a. I mean, they're both the same thing, but one, so when you write 3 and the dividing sign and then a, it's much harder, sometimes it's much harder to see, and it might cause a lot of um, errors because you might have missed it and you might have thought it as a subtracting sign. So always write it in as fractions. Fractions we will cover in a later video as well, so in more detail. But in here you need to do is you need to write that as a fraction. If that's wrong, that's correct. So write the numbers first, then the letter. So writing A3 is wrong, and writing 3A is the correct way to do it. Write the letters in alphabetical order when multiplied. So here, as you can see in the first thing, so 3BCA, that's the wrong way to do it. So the better way to do it is 3ABC. So these rules are made up so it helps you when you're actually doing the question itself. For example, when you're doing in the first one here, 3 multiplied by a and like 3 divided by a, when you just write this thing down in like a long list of questions or long list that you're trying to solve, it becomes really hard to see it, or you might like easily miss out some things. For example, you might just miss out the 3 and then write the a down, and so on and so forth. Writing in this way, like following these rules, it will help you a lot, and then it will help you become a better mathematician because you're more efficient, and the chances of you getting something wrong is less because you're helping yourself by following these rules, and you're helping your maths get better by following these rules. So when you're doing something, Always try to stick with these rules. So now we're going to move on to simplifying expressions. So when you're simplifying expressions, the main thing that you need to understand and know is you are basically collecting like terms. So the like terms is basically you're collecting the same letters and numbers. So if you have, so let's take an example. So to simplify this further, you can think of it as you're sorting out marbles from a packet, where you pick out all of the red ones and you group them together, all the green ones, all the blue ones, and so on and so forth. So you're categorizing them. So in here, you're basically doing the same thing. Just look over what you have, like the whole question, and just group all the x's together, y's together, z's together, and whatever the number is, just group that as a whole. And if there are whole numbers left, like as we show you earlier, like 4x minus 1, if there are whole numbers left, just group them aside and then add them, or yeah, just simplify them together. Okay? So in order to do this, and so that's the same as the same color marbles. So in order to do this can be found using something here, and it's called BIDMAS. Okay? So let's look at closely at what BIDMAS is. So first of all, what we're going to do is BIDMAS is not an actual word, it's an acronym. It's made it so you can easily remember it. This is a process. This is the way that you have to do something. So just if you follow this and you will not go wrong, trust me. So B stands for bracket, or otherwise known as parentheses. In here we said B. So brackets. Indices, I stand for indices. Indices is, we're going to look at in a later video. Indices in this case is the A. Okay, we're going to take a look at this in another video, but in here, for the sake of this video, we're using this BIDMAS, so this indices, just bear with it. Next one is division. D stands for division. So that's the division symbol, mathematical division symbol. Then multiplication, addition, subtraction. Okay, so in the textbook, these two are in the same place. Division and multiplication, they're in the same place, and addition and subtraction, they're in the same place as well. So when I say same place, it's the order that you search for something. The order that you search for something. So when you're using this, it must be in the correct order. So first, you check for brackets, then you check for indices, then you check for division signs, then multiplication sign, then addition, then subtraction. In some textbooks or schools, they're using BODMAS. This is the same thing as BIDMAS. The only difference is they're using, in here, I'm using I, that stands for indices, and they're using O, that stands for orders. I mean, not technically speaking, but indices and orders, they're the same thing. It's just another name for it. So yeah, they're both the same thing, and these two are both the same thing. So BODMAS and BIDMAS, both same thing. You can use either one. I've used BIDMAS pretty much my whole life, so I stick with BIDMAS. And BODMAS, I've only had it recently, so yeah, BIDMAS sticks better to me. So you can use either one, but remember this order. For me, checking everything in this order, so 1 through 6, is the best way to do. In the book, there's division and multiplication are in the same place, but all the questions I've done in my GCSEs, A levels, and everything, using BIDMAS in this order is great. You can't go wrong with it. So let's move on to example 1. In this example, we're going to do this question. So if you want to have a go at this question, I'm more than happy for you to pause the video and have a go. So we're going to go through it now. So first things first, write down BIDMAS. Most of the time when you're doing question, just along the side of it or somewhere that you can see, write down BIDMAS. So first things first, we need to find out which of these BIDMAS things are inside this question. So first off, we have brackets. That's there. Indices, there are no indices. Division, yes, there's a division here. Multiplication, well, the only multiplication is 10x here and 2x here, and that's nothing much. And addition, there's no addition. Subtraction, the only subtraction is here. So first of all, we're going to look at the bracket. So inside the bracket, it's 10x minus 16. 10x minus 16, well, there's nothing you can do to it because it can't be simplified further. That's the most simplest form it has. So now what you can do is, okay, write it down like this. And now what you can do is you're going to split this up into two fractions. Fractions we're going to cover in a later video. So if you are not sure what a fraction is, or if you want more practice with fractions, make sure to check out my playlist in YouTube for the GCSE Edexcel Maths, Maths GCSE 91 course. So I'm still in the process of making it, but I will make it as soon as I can. So you can separate it into two fractions. The first fraction is 10x over 2x, and the second fraction is minus 16 over 2x. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to look at the first fraction. And now what you're going to, because it's 10 and 2, you're going to cancel out the 2 and 10. You're going to do 10 divided by 2, which is 5. And here we have x on top and x on bottom. So when you divide x by x, it becomes 1. So this fraction just becomes 5. Now you need to write down the minus sign. Don't leave any of these minus signs out, or otherwise you will get the wrong answer. So take very care when dealing with minus signs. So in here, what you're going to do is you're going to do 16 divided by 2, because that's the only numerical value on top. Because there are no x's on top, you're just going to leave the x down below, and there's nothing you can do more for that. So this is the simplified version of the question up above. Okay, so draw the double line, show the question is answered. So example 2, what we're going to do is we're going to calculate some values. So in here, I have written some questions. The first question is, what is a minus b divided by 5? What is 23ab? What is ab minus c? So I have given the initial conditions where a equals 1, b equals 5, c equals minus 4. So you can pause the video and have a go at yourself in substituting these values. So now we're just going to go through what these values will be. So example 2, question 1. Question 1 is bracket a minus b, bracket close, then divide by 5. Well, first thing you need to do is, what I like to do is I just like to write down the question again underneath it. And then you just substitute in the values. There's nothing much to do here. You just put in a and you put in b. And then just subtract it. This is what you do here. You just substitute in the values and do not change any order of the question. So the answer for this question is minus 4 over 5, or minus 4/5. For this one, okay, we're going to do 23 and then bracket 1, bracket 5. The 23ab is the same as saying 23 multiplied by A multiplied by B, which is same as saying 23 bracket A bracket B. So here, so we're going to do some long multiplication here. So using column method, same as before. So 5 times 3 is 15, and put the 5 here, put the 1 here. 5 times 2 is 10, and then plus the 1, it becomes 11. So put the 11 here because there's nothing there. So the answer is 515. Moving on to question 3. So it is AB minus C. So in this one, AB minus C, the same as writing bracket A bracket B minus C, which is also the same as writing bracket AB minus C, which is also can be same as writing bracket A multiplied by B minus C. So you just substitute in the values. So you have 1 multiplied by 5 in this bracket, then you have minus. And when you're substituting things in, it's usually best practice to put a bracket, excuse me, to put a bracket and then the value and then do the bracket close. Okay, now what you do is this simplifies to 5, simplify this, you just write it as it is. So you do 5 minus and then minus 4. So the C is minus 4 and there's a minus in front of the C. So this becomes, so 5 minus minus 4 is the same as saying 5 plus 4, which is 9. Okay, so things to watch out for. So the main thing you need to understand in this topic is not to get confused with the letters. Okay? So here's how you write the alphabet. Well, I haven't written the whole alphabet here because there's no point in me writing the whole alphabet. But here are the main letters that people get confused with. The letter F. People get confused with this and the plus sign because sometimes they forget to draw the top curly part of it and then they think it's a plus. This one is I. So when you're writing the I, just do like a small squiggle kind of thing. So you don't get confused with 1. In here, I wrote the 1 like this because to express that it is 1. But most of the time when you're writing 1, it's just like a straight line. When I'm writing the 1, it's just a straight line. So I usually get confused with the 1 and I. So I always try to make it different by writing I like that. Next one is L. So this can also be confused with 1. The other one is O. The simple O. And sometimes, most of the time, what you do is you have the number very big and the letter very small. So the O is usually quite small than compared to the numbers. Or some people like to do is they like to put this little dot inside the O. Personally, I don't really like to put the dot inside the O because sometimes you just might get confused by it. So it is confused with 0. 0 and O, they are usually the ones that always get confused with. Next one is T. T has the same thing as F, where some people write the T as like a plus sign and then they just forget it as a plus sign. Next one is X. This is the correct way to write X mathematically. But as you can see here again, it's like 2 C's back to back. That's the correct way to write X. So most people, they get X confused with multiplication sign. Finally, we have Z. Most people get this confused with number 2. In here, all these letters and numbers, I have written it to exaggerate how they're properly written. But most of the time when you are doing a question under exam conditions and exam like stress, you tend to write less nicely. so your writing tends to go all wonky and stuff. So it's not gonna look as nice as it is here. So that's why you need to take extra care when writing, because you're gonna be writing really fast and you might get confused what you're writing. So in here, just to express, so this is lowercase l. So you just put like a small leg at the bottom of it, similar to the uppercase L, but the uppercase L is like kind of like a rectangular square shape underneath it. So this is not the same as capital L. This is lowercase l, not the same as uppercase L. Okay, so in a summary, in this video, we have learned the definitions of expressions, equations, formula. So in here, formulae is plural, formula is one. So you have also learned how to simplify expressions using normal collecting terms and through BIDMAS. So thank you for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like the video and subscribe. Also, let others know of this channel, and hopefully they would like it as well. So if you are doing GCSE, it doesn't have to be a Dexel. If you're doing any other course as well, you are more than happy to watch the videos and share it with others as well, because maths is maths, the content is pretty much the same, and yeah, it's like only some areas are just being targeted more specifically, but you can also view the videos as well. And please leave a comment, your comments below if you want me to go through anything else in the future, or if you don't understand anything, just leave a comment down below. If it's your first time, make sure you check out my playlist in the GCSE 91 full course content in my channel. And thank you for listening. See you next time.